Well, thank you very much for seeing me on such a short notice. And I wonder if you could actually tell us about the current situation, not only here, but in Europe, and if there is any way out of the current mess, and what could the European movement do to help?
Well, firstly, a happy Christmas to all our European movement members, if you're seeing it before Christmas. It's not the happiest Christmas politically, it's quite the maddest situation I've seen in all my career in politics. And in a way, it would be quite fascinating for a political addict like me if it wasn't all about such serious issues. And we've got to take an historic decision that will affect the well-being of our children and grandchildren. And at the moment, it's all the most appalling mess. The problem is that the ordinary democratic system has been destroyed by this opinion poll or referendum. That's what referendums are for. People demand them and they think they might get a result which pushes Parliament and the political parties out of the way. And to everybody's amazement, this one's worked for the Brexiteers, the Leavers, who won the vote, which far too many MPs had promised they would be bound by and promised they would give up their own judgment of the national interest, which has plunged us into this situation. The two parties are hopelessly split, not just into right and left, but into little factions, different groups of Remainers, different groups of Leavers on both sides. And it's quite clear that the British are incapable of coming to any consensus or clear majority decision about what we mean by leave and what we intend to do if we're mad enough to go ahead with it. So that's where we are now, and it's a very worrying situation. We've now got a situation actually where we've got a withdrawal agreement. This is purely a preliminary. We've settled three questions: European and British citizens' rights when they go to other countries in future, the amount of money that we legally and morally owe, past obligations, and then we've got to settle this straightforward business of the Irish border, which everybody does not wish to put a fixed border back in Ireland, which of course all the Brexiteers hadn't even thought of when they were campaigning at the time of the referendum. Well, we've reached an agreement on that, and there's now outrage and people trying to reject it. Have an open border between two countries that aren't in a free trade deal. You've got to have some arrangements. At the very least, both sides have got to be in have a customs union, so you don't need tariffs and customs collected at the border. And you've got to have some regulatory alignment, some version of a single market. And it's quite obvious it's the only way you can have an open border. And the best thing would be to have that for the whole of the United Kingdom. We don't want closed borders at Dover and Holyhead and Felixstowe and places with the European imports. But there's no other way of keeping the border open. It's completely crazy to suggest so. But various people are demanding that we should. So a mad argument's broken out about the Irish backstop, which most members of the public couldn't describe. And it's quite harmless, the Irish backstop. It's not attractive to either side. It puts Northern Ireland in a slightly preferential economic situation compared with the rest of Europe whilst it lasts, because they're the only ones with totally free access to both the UK and the EU market, as long as they're in it. But apart from that, both the British government and the European governments will be anxious not to go into it if they can avoid it, and anxious to get out of it. But we're all hung up, and Parliament's broken up for Christmas, where I hope they'll calm down and get a bit more sensible. When we come back, we'll only have 45 days in which to decide what we're going to do. The chances are that Theresa's proposals will, the withdrawal agreement, which once more be rejected, and there's no earthly time to arrange the alternatives. We obviously, in my opinion, in a sane world, are going to have to put it off until we can decide what it is we want to do. And You can delay Article 50 if you like, but you won't delay it much beyond into July for legal reasons, because the Europeans certainly don't want Nigel Farage back in the European Parliament. Thank you very much. The thing to do is to revoke it and just put it off, and then spend some time on the real negotiations that have got to start yet, on all the big questions of our future relationship. And if the country still feels like leaving the European Union, on whatever terms we've looked like negotiating, then just start it again if you want. I'll personally vote against starting it again, obviously, whenever you get there. The real negotiations will take several years, probably. The Canada agreement took 8 years or 9 years to negotiate. The Switzerland deal, a special deal with another European country, took 13 years to negotiate. Starting as we do, I think a British agreement will take 4 or 5 years. Whether we agreed the government's deal and go out on politically in March and in a transition period when our trade arrangements and trade negotiate it then, or as I prefer, just see if we can negotiate it first and then decide whether we still want to go ahead. Yeah, you've got to sort these things out. For the Europeans, they're not evil foreigners trying to do us down. They're people who are going to be damaged if Britain leaves the European Union. They are our best friends in the world, certainly so far as long as Donald Trump is President of the United States. And they're just baffled friends. They can no longer understand British politics. There's not much that they can do. You can't negotiate with the British if the British Cabinet, the British Parliament and the British people haven't the first notion what it is they're trying to negotiate. So it's a crazy, crazy situation. Personally, I think vote for a withdrawal bill if you're doomed to leave as we are. At the moment it's being imposed by two totally contradictory groups. First are the Brexiteers, who want to wreck any agreement because they want to leave with no deal, which would be chaotic and ruinous for our economy and our jobs. And then some hardline Remainers, who are normally my allies. But they've decided they want to cause chaos because they think if it gets defeated, then you'll have another referendum. Now, one of them's wrong. Jacob wants, Rees-Mogg wants to vote against it so he can get no deal. And Anna Soubry wants to vote against it so she can get a referendum. One of them's going to have a big disappointment. And as personally, I think running the country by opinion polls is a silly waste of time. And as this opinion poll wouldn't solve anything, unless Leave won it again, which would be a real disaster. But if Remain won by a small margin, I mean, there'd still be a tremendous row unless they got a dominant overriding majority. And if we voted Leave again, we'd just back at square one. Well, what do the British actually want then? What does Leave mean? Now, obviously, I hope members of the European movement agree with me that the whole process of starting this off, as David Cameron did for trivial and irresponsible reasons, never dreaming he might lose the referendum. The whole thing has been a disaster from the word go. We've got to find some way of trying to reverse this. We may have to delay things for the time being so things calm down. The public are so angry and divided that it's almost impossible to get a consensus in the country at the moment. But eventually, I hope if we campaign properly and concentrate on what wasn't mentioned during the campaign, what never gets into the media, the considerable benefits we've had from being members of the European Union for the last 45 years. It's made Britain a more powerful voice in the world. We are influential as one of the big three in the European Union, and the European Union member with the closest ties to America normally. That makes us be able to punch above our weight, to use a corny phrase. And then economically, it's helped us build a modern and competitive economy whose well-being is now being threatened and which is in the doldrums at the moment because of the uncertainty. And if we went on, we get more benefits to continue. So let's be the voices of common sense, let's be the voice of sanity, and the voices who put the national interest first above all this nonsense that's going on. thank you for belonging to the European movement, and I shall certainly be working alongside you next year.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
There we are.